David Nixon joining BYU Sports Nation right now, former BYU and NFL linebacker, and one of our very talented analysts that we have in store.
Still not a Bob, though.
Oh, wow. Hey, David, welcome to the show. Disregard what Brian has just thrown out there.
Unbelievable.
Don't disregard that, man. You know what it is, David.
You're part of the Band of Brothers.
I went home for Thanksgiving, and all of a sudden I'm not a Band of Brother. I tell you what, there's no mercy, mercy at BYU.
You left your brothers hanging, man. Brother, you signed. We all signed the BYUtv honor code, man. brothers first. Hashtag Bob. We signed it. We signed their name and we put hashtag Bob. But you want to go on vacation with your family?
I'm trying to give others opportunities, Brian. That's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
David, this is a huge week for BYU and college football, college athletics in general, and we're going to touch on all of that. I want to start with what Brian and I were just talking about. That is BYU and the speculation to the Big 12. Talked to Blaine Fowler about that, and what the realistic, I guess, expectation should be. You're from College Station. Texas A&M is now in the SEC, but they were in the Big 12 forever. You know all about what Big 12 football represents. Do you see, with this happening on Sunday, with Baylor and TCU being left out, BYU being expedited into the Big 12?
Well, I will say one thing. If it doesn't happen within the next few months, I don't ever see it happening. I think that's due to the fact that this is the perfect time for it to occur. When you've got this chaos with not only one Big 12 team being left out, but two that I think were rightfully deserving to be in the college football playoff. And then, of course, the feedback was that, look, you were basically penalized because you didn't have a conference game. So I personally believe that if that invitation is not extended here within the next few months, or maybe I give it maybe a year, I don't ever see BYU going to the Big 12.
David Nixon dropping bombs on BYU Sports Nation right there. So you feel like there is a 1 year window, and if BYU can't get in, they're never going to get into the Big 12?
That's my personal opinion. I mean, you've heard reports. Well, look back at the old Big 12 and look at Colorado got poached to the Pac-12. You saw A&M get poached over to the SEC. I think that trend will continue to the Big 12. If they don't start being proactive, I think you'll see other universities start getting poached to other conferences that want to get to 14, 16 team conference. I think you might see Big 12 eventually possibly dissolve. I mean, that's a bold statement as it is, but I think the way the trend of college football is going, the bigger conferences, the better. These Elite Five conferences are starting to become bigger and more powerful. So I don't know. I think now's the perfect time, and if at least discussions aren't being had, I don't know what would be deserving to have those discussions later. If the opportunity arose, I think now is the time.
I think you're spot on. The Big 12, a few years ago, almost dissolved because of the teams were leaving. So hopefully they've learned from their mistakes and they move forward as fast as possible. But if that's not the case, where does that leave BYU? Do they then choose to go to a Group 5 conference, or do they stay independent?
I think you have to stay independent. I really don't think BYU can resort back to the Mountain West Conference. I think you lose every single head-to-head battle recruiting-wise with Utah. If you go back to a Mountain West Conference, I mean, that's a pretty easy pitch if you're Utah saying, hey, we're Pac-12 and BYU. Yeah, they were the lonely brother that had to go back to the Mountain West.
Great point.
And I think Boise State, with the way they're playing, they're now going to the Fiesta Bowl this year. I mean, they continue to have a great program. Obviously, they've shown they can recover well from Coach Peterson leaving. So I think they'll eventually get picked up somewhere along the line by one of these conferences. I think it's only a matter of time. But listen, I was as ecstatic as anybody to see TCU left out, even though they're a fellow Texas school, and that's where I grew up. And Baylor, same thing. It was tough to see them get slighted, but for BYU, selfishly, for BYU's purposes, I was ecstatic because I think it has to bring that conversation around that the Big 12 needs to add some teams to get back to the conference championship, because at the end of the day, you look at those last few games. I mean, TCU playing Baylor, and then TCU playing Iowa State that last game, and Baylor playing Kansas State. Kansas State was a good opponent, but if you can imagine, if they would have been playing a higher ranked opponent, then they would have had more respect over those wins on that last week, which is, as we now know, is the main week where the college football playoff committee really makes their decision. So, looking at those rankings previous to this last one that came out, I think those were all just for TV ratings. I mean, you look at TCU at number 3, and also they dropped 3 spots just because of 1 week. I mean,
conspiracy.
I think going forward, they should just not reveal those. I think they're all for ratings and just chit chat. I think they should just probably, for future reference, just hold off until they reveal the top 4, and then there's not as much, as many feelings getting hurt and as much uprise. So that's just my personal thought. I honestly have a lot of thoughts about this whole college football playoff and BYU, but that's kind of my initial take is that now's the time, and I sure hope there's some conversations. I would love to be a fly on the wall in Tom Homo's office and hear the conversations he's having with the Big 12 Commission and maybe other commissioners. I don't know, maybe I think even outside the Big 12, I think this college football playoff has kind of opened the eyes of other commissioners and realized how important it is to have these mega conferences and have these title games and to have the strength of the conference be there so they can hopefully have one of their teams represented in that college football playoff.
BYUtv sports analyst and BYU football captain in 2008, David Nixon, the linebacker extraordinaire, with us talking about the Big 12. And now I want to shift our attention to what has just come out this morning, and that is a report from Jamie Newberg of Scout.com, a national recruiting analyst, and he put out there that Oregon State has had phone discussions with 4 candidates for their vacant coaching job now with Mike Riley going to Nebraska. He said Brady Hoke, Michigan, BYU coach Bronco Mendenhall, Matt Wells of Utah State, and Eastern Washington coach Bo Baldwin have all spoken with the Beavers administration about the opening. Now, for me, this is a good thing because, and people are like, huh? Because it means Bronco Mendenhall is doing things right. You want your coach to be noticed, and you want people to be interested in him because that means you have a good commodity, right?
100%. I think this only shows the respect that Coach Mendenhall has throughout the coaching community and throughout the nation as far as universities go. This isn't something new. Fans shouldn't be surprised by this. I remember after my senior year, he was getting approached by universities. UCLA, when they had their vacancy come about, his name was being tossed around. So this is nothing new, and this is all part of the coaching carousel and what happens at the end of seasons when coaches are fired or coaches leave in this instance. I think it's, out of all the possibilities of places where universities were approaching Coach Mendenhall, I think this one is probably the most intriguing for him, with it being obviously his alma mater. He's mentioned before that when he wasn't offered a scholarship by BYU to play, he tried to find any university throughout the country that had BYU on their schedule so he could go there and play BYU and beat them. And sure enough, Oregon State had offered him a scholarship, and BYU was on their schedule, so he went to Oregon State. And then, of course, later GA there, so I think this would be a potential fit for him. Who knows? Obviously, I have no idea what's going to happen. I've been open about it, the fact that I love Bronco Mendenhall. I think he's a great coach, and he's perfect for what BYU needs. But as far as this opportunity for him, I think this is something he's probably talked to him about, and he's taking it serious and taking a hard look at it because of it being his alma mater, and I think a good fit, university-wise for him.
David, good to talk to you. Appreciate you joining us and giving us your thoughts on the Big 12 speculation and, of course, the news that's just come out about Bronco Mendenhall interviewing with Oregon State over the phone. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, guys.